Imagine a room full of America's top engineers, the kind of people who have spent decades studying electric motors, battery systems, and energy conversion at the highest level. Now imagine that same room falling into complete silence as a vehicle that supposedly defies every known engineering rule rolls in. That's exactly what happened at the U.S. engineering panel last week, when Maxwell Chikumbutso quietly introduced something no one expected, a self-powered EV that doesn't plug in, doesn't charge, and doesn't slow down. And at the center of the front row, arms crossed, eyes narrowed behind a skeptical stare, sat Elon Musk. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't making jokes. He was trying to figure out how any of this could be real. Because from the moment the vehicle entered the hall, its dashboard showed full charge, yet no charging port was visible. No cables. No solar panels. No auxiliary batteries. Nothing. It looked impossible. And that was exactly the point. As the audience leaned in, Maxwell stepped forward with a calmness that felt almost unnerving. He tapped the hood twice, and the projected display above the vehicle lit up, showing systems running at full load, motor, inverter, electronics, all powered by a mysterious internal mechanism the panel had never seen before. In the back of the room, someone whispered, "It's generating power while driving?" A few engineers laughed under their breath, but the laughter quickly faded when Maxwell walked to the driver's seat, pressed a single button, and the car came to life with a smooth hum, steady, continuous, and unlike any EV startup sound the panel was used to hearing. Elon's expression changed instantly. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the oscillating power graph on the screen, a graph that showed energy flowing into the system instead of out. It didn't make sense. EVs only spend energy, they never gain it. But Maxwell wasn't smiling. He wasn't bragging. He simply began to explain that the vehicle used a proprietary electromagnetic generator paired with a stabilization system designed to maintain internal energy cycling without depletion. Engineers exchanged doubtful looks. Some shook their heads. But Elon didn't move. He was analyzing every detail, every reading, every sound. Then the test began. The car rolled forward on the platform, wheels spinning freely, motor under load, energy consumption visible, and yet the onboard system stayed stable. No battery drain, no voltage drop, no heat spikes, just a steady, almost impossible balance. An engineer from MIT stepped forward, pointing at the display. "This says it's producing more energy than it's using." That's not even theoretically." He didn't finish the sentence. Maxwell simply said, "Not theoretically. Practically." The room fell into another wave of silence, thick, uncomfortable, almost electric. Then, for the first time, Elon Musk spoke. "What's the source?" Maxwell looked directly at him. "It's not a source," he said. "It's a system." Elon straightened up, clearly frustrated but undeniably intrigued. Because if Maxwell was right, if the system really worked, it meant rethinking everything from EV manufacturing to grid dependency to the economics of energy itself. And Elon knew it. The panel demanded a deeper demonstration. They asked Maxwell to run the car at a higher load, more torque, more stress, more power draw. They wanted numbers that couldn't be faked. Maxwell didn't hesitate. He stepped back, nodded to his assistant, and within seconds the vehicle shifted modes, entering a high-torque stress test. The motor whined. The wheels accelerated. The display surged with data. Engineers scrambled to verify readings. And Elon? For the first time that hour, his jaw tightened. Because the numbers weren't dropping. They were rising. The system was stabilizing itself as load increased. It was the opposite of everything EV engineers are taught. Someone in the audience whispered, "This shouldn't exist." Maxwell looked at them and replied quietly, "Yet here it is." The test continued, and the room watched in disbelief as the readings remained stable, almost mocking conventional physics. The test continued, and the room watched in disbelief as the readings remained stable, almost mocking conventional physics. And then something unexpected happened. The lead systems engineer, a veteran with 30 years of experience working on propulsion efficiency models, rushed toward the stage with a handheld analyzer. His face was pale, almost trembling, as he connected it to the auxiliary output port. Seconds later, his device started displaying numbers he clearly wasn't prepared for. He blinked twice, then 3 times. "This system is charging itself under load," he said quietly. No one responded. No one breathed. It felt like the entire hall froze. Maxwell simply nodded, as if this revelation was the most natural thing in the world. "That's the stabilizer loop," he said. "It ensures the system never drops below operational threshold." Another engineer, younger but bolder, stepped forward. "But that means if you scaled this." Maxwell finished the sentence for him. "Yes. A vehicle with infinite runtime." The younger engineer took a step back, stunned. Elon Musk finally unfolded his arms. His expression wasn't skepticism anymore. It was calculation, the look of a man rerunning equations in his mind that he once considered absolute. And then he said, "Run it under max load." A ripple swept through the hall. That was the most aggressive test anyone could ask for, the kind of stress that breaks motors, melts inverters, and obliterates batteries. Maxwell nodded calmly to his assistant. "Max load," he said. The assistant hesitated. Everyone hesitated. But he pressed the command. The vehicle roared, not like a combustion engine, but with a powerful electric surge that filled the hall. The wheels accelerated to unsafe-looking speeds as the platform restraints groaned under the tension. The overhead display exploded with data. Voltage up. Current stable. Frequency balancing itself in real time. Temperature rising, but only within safe margins. No system collapse. No power drain. Just a consistent, impossible equilibrium. The MIT engineer whispered. "This is self-regulating. It behaves like a closed energy ecosystem." A NASA Power Systems specialist approached the screen. "This isn't standard regenerative braking," she muttered. "This is something else. Something continuous." Elon's eyes were locked on the stabilizer graph. "That feedback loop," he murmured. "It's compensating in real time. That would require calculations." He looked straight at Maxwell. "Are you telling us," Elon said slowly, "that this vehicle rewrites energy consumption in real time?" Maxwell nodded. "It doesn't consume energy," he said. "It cycles it." A long pause followed. Then Elon said the words no one expected. "Show me the core." Maxwell walked around the vehicle and opened a panel beneath the rear chassis. Inside was a compact assembly unlike anything the engineers had seen, a geometric array of magnetic rings, stabilizer coils, and a pulsating core emitting a soft blue glow. Several engineers stepped forward at the same time, only to freeze once they sensed the field emanating from it, a warm, stable oscillation that felt almost alive. Elon leaned in, eyes narrowing. "What's the frequency of this field?" Maxwell answered without hesitation. "Variable. It adapts to load. It adapts to the environment." Elon stood back slowly, processing the implications. Because if that were true, if the system adjusted itself to any condition, then Maxwell hadn't just built a self-powered EV. He had built a new category of machine, a new paradigm, a new era. The room didn't know it yet, but this moment was going to reshape the global energy conversation forever. And Maxwell wasn't finished. The hall remained frozen, every expert caught between disbelief and awe. Maxwell stepped back from the glowing core, letting the engineers visually drink in a device that looked more like alien technology than anything designed on Earth. Then he spoke again, calmly, but with a tone that landed like thunder. "This is only the prototype." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Only the prototype?" Elon raised an eyebrow, arms slowly folding again, not in skepticism this time, but in deep, strategic interest. "One question," Elon said. "If this is the prototype, what does the production unit look like?" Maxwell didn't answer immediately. Instead, he signaled to his assistant, who tapped a command on a tablet. Suddenly, the massive screens surrounding the hall flickered and displayed a new graphic. A sleek, compact, crystalline-like energy module rotating slowly in 3D space. The engineers leaned forward. Elon's eyes widened by a fraction. The label beneath the 3D model read, "Quantum Flux Reactor." Mk2. Maxwell let the silence build. The production unit, he finally said, is 10 times smaller, 5 times more efficient, and requires no thermal management system. A NASA engineer nearly dropped her device. That's impossible, she whispered. A system that dense would overheat instantly. Maxwell responded simply. It doesn't create waste heat. The hall erupted again, this time louder. Arguments.
Shock. Fear. Excitement.
This wasn't just a new EV component. This was a direct threat to battery makers, utility companies, energy grids, and entire global industries. One older engineer, a professor from Caltech, stepped forward with trembling hands. You're describing a perpetual, stable energy loop, he said. A system that violates every law of thermodynamics we teach. Maxwell nodded. That's why new technology requires new laws. The professor's mouth fell open. Elon slowly stepped closer to Maxwell, lowering his voice. What happens, he asked, when you scale this to homes, factories, cities? Maxwell didn't blink. You get decentralization, he said. Energy independence for every household. A planet that no longer relies on grids, fossil fuels, or battery farms. Elon exhaled, a long, low breath through his nose. You're talking about ending the energy economy. Maxwell turned to face him fully. I'm talking about evolving it. Before Elon could reply, Maxwell gestured toward the testing platform again. I haven't shown you the most important part, he said. The room stilled again. Maxwell tapped a control panel, and the EV's stabilizer system shifted into a new configuration. The core intensified slightly, its glow tightening into a concentrated pulse. Then the overhead screen displayed a new readout. External power output, active. A U.S. Department of Energy official stepped forward. What are you doing now? He asked cautiously. Maxwell looked at him with quiet confidence. I'm demonstrating gridless power sharing. As he spoke, a row of lights on the far side of the hall, connected to no visible cables, flickered, then switched on. Gasps echoed across the room. The EV was wirelessly powering the hall. Not inductively. Not via microwave transmission. Not through coils or plates. Just power. Traveling through open space. Elon's jaw tightened. How far does this work? He asked, voice low. Maxwell paused, then answered. The farthest test so far is 12 kilometers. Silence. Then the murmurs started again, shocked, frantic, world-shatteringly confused. A Pentagon representative stepped forward. Is this safe for airspace? For biological environments? Maxwell nodded calmly. The field is non-ionizing. It doesn't disrupt communication signals. And it adapts to obstacles automatically. A senior DOE engineer asked, what about interference? Maxwell responded, there is none. Another engineer tried again. What about attenuation? Minimal. What about loss over distance? Self-correcting. What about? Elon cut in, voice sharp. Maxwell, what powers the core? The room went silent. Everyone leaned in. This was the question no one had dared ask out loud. Maxwell stepped into the center of the room, the core glowing behind him. It doesn't draw from a battery, he said. It doesn't draw from the environment. It doesn't draw from the grid. He held up one finger. It draws from the field. A field that exists everywhere, but no one has learned to use. The crowd stared. Elon whispered, you're saying this is ambient space energy? Maxwell smiled. Not ambient. Not quantum vacuum. Not cosmic. Just energy that was always there, waiting. The room was in total disbelief. And then Maxwell delivered the final blow. Would you like to see the field live? Dozens of voices shouted yes. Maxwell placed his hand on the core housing, and something began to happen that none of them expected. The lights dimmed. The air vibrated softly. A faint shimmer, like heat haze, appeared around the vehicle. The engineers didn't move. Elon didn't blink. Everyone sensed it. This wasn't just a demonstration. This was the moment the world changed. The shimmering around the vehicle grew clearer, like a thin veil of translucent light bending the air. Engineers instinctively stepped back, forming a cautious semicircle around the EV. Maxwell raised his hand slightly. "Don't worry," he said. "This is the field revealing itself. Normally, it's invisible." Elon leaned in, eyes narrowed, hungry for every detail. "What exactly are we seeing?" he asked quietly. Maxwell replied, "A localized distortion. Space reacting to energy density that isn't supposed to exist at this scale." A NASA physicist whispered to her colleague, "It's a spatial gradient, but stable. How is that even possible?" Another pointed, barely containing panic. "There's no particle scatter, no heat signature, no radiation, nothing." Maxwell turned toward them. "That's because the field isn't pushing energy out," he said. "It's pulling energy in." The room froze again. Pulling energy in? From where? A DOE official took a step closer, voice shaking. "Are you telling us this device feeds itself?" Maxwell nodded once. "It pulls from a constant reservoir. A field that doesn't weaken, doesn't deplete, doesn't fluctuate." The shimmering intensified. Then, a soft hum resonated across the hall, gentle but deep, like the air itself was singing. Elon looked around at the glowing distortion and muttered under his breath, "This is insane. This breaks every model, every law, every assumption." Maxwell walked slowly around the EV, tracing his hand along the boundary of the distortion. "You've all spent decades trying to solve energy storage," he said. "Batteries, capacitors, supercells, hydrogen, fusion."
He paused.
But what if there was nothing to store? Because the source is infinite and everywhere. An engineer blurted out, "That sounds like..." Maxwell raised a hand. "Don't say perpetual motion," he said firmly. "This isn't perpetual motion." He tapped the side of the shimmering field. "It's perpetual access." The distinction hit the room like a shockwave. Elon's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're opening a door to a place we didn't even know existed." Maxwell turned to him, eyes steady. "The door was always open. We just didn't know where to look." Suddenly, a ripple passed through the field, like a pulse of invisible wind. The holographic displays flickered. Instruments recalibrated themselves automatically, struggling to interpret what they were detecting. A Pentagon scientist rushed forward. "What caused that pulse? Was that a fluctuation?" Maxwell shook his head.
"No.
That was the system syncing with the room." The hall went silent again. "Syncing with the room?" the scientist repeated. Maxwell pointed upward. "The field adapts to physical space. It maps density, matter distribution, electromagnetic signatures, and adjusts its flow." A nervous engineer asked, "Is the field interacting with us? With our bodies?" Maxwell smiled. "You're all standing inside it right now." The room erupted. Some stepped back, others leaned forward, fascinated, terrified, overwhelmed. Elon stayed still, absorbing every word, then asked the question no one expected. "Can the field be scaled beyond one vehicle?" Maxwell's expression changed, subtly, but undeniably. "Yes," he said, "to any size." Even the air stopped moving. A senior scientist whispered, "To cities?" Maxwell nodded. "To continents." A gasp swept across the hall. But Maxwell wasn't finished. He took a breath, placed his palm gently on the glowing core, and said, "And that's why I brought you all here today. Not for a car, not for a demonstration, but for what comes next." The screens around the hall suddenly went black. Then a single message appeared. "Project Horizon. Initiation phase." Elon took one sharp breath. "What is Horizon?" he demanded. Maxwell stepped forward, eyes fixed on the entire room. "A world where energy is no longer a commodity. A world where grids disappear. A world where distance, power, and cost no longer matter." He paused. "A world that runs on the field." The shimmering grew brighter. The hum deepened. The hall felt like it was standing on the threshold of something unimaginable. Maxwell raised his hand to give the final command. Maxwell's fingers hovered over the control band on his wrist. The hall felt heavier, as if the air itself had paused to listen. Elon leaned forward, unable to hide the anticipation. "What happens when you activate it?" he asked quietly. Maxwell didn't look at him. "The moment this command is executed," he said, "every field generator within a 200-mile radius will come online." A wave of shock rolled through the engineers. NASA's chief energy officer stepped forward sharply. "You mean there are more of these?" "Already installed." Maxwell finally turned to face the room. "We've been building for years. Quietly. Testing stability. Mapping resonance points. Preparing for synchronized activation." On the screens, a new schematic appeared. A glowing web stretching across the U.S. like a neural network. Elon's eyes widened. "You embedded generators across the entire Western grid?" Maxwell looked at him, almost amused. "Not in the grid, Elon. Under it." A scientist grabbed the edge of a chair to steady herself. "You're talking about a subsurface resonance network. That would require 32 anchor points," Maxwell said. "And we installed 33. The hall erupted again, shouts, demands, disbelief. Maxwell raised his hand, and the field around the car pulsed once, silencing the room instantly.
He spoke calmly.
"The grid, as you know it, isn't disappearing. It's being supplanted by something cleaner, faster, far beyond any without force." Yet every hair stood on every arm. The screens turned white. Sensors overloaded. The field around the EV expanded outward. And for a moment, just a moment, everyone saw it. A soft lattice. Like a web of light. A network.
Alive.
And then, the power in the entire building cut out. Darkness. Silence. Nothing but the faintest hum in the room. Elon whispered, barely audible. "What did you just activate?" A faint blue glow started rising from the EV, illuminating Maxwell's face. He looked around at the stunned engineers and said, "Not a machine. Not a device." He placed his hand on the car. "A new energy architecture." Then the hum grew louder, and something outside the building began to respond. The hum deepened, radiating through the concrete walls. Everyone in the hall turned toward the massive glass windows as a faint blue glow rippled across the horizon, rolling over buildings, streets, towers, like dawn arriving all at once. Elon took a hesitant step forward. "What's happening out there?" he whispered. Maxwell watched the glow spread, calm and unwavering. "Horizon has connected," he said. "The anchors have synchronized." One of the engineers leaned against a console, stunned. "You mean that's the field? Everywhere?" Maxwell nodded. "The entire western region is now running on the lattice." The emergency lights flickered, trying to turn on, but the room remained dim, lit only by the strange radiance seeping in from outside. A DOE official stammered. "Wait, if the grid is offline, why isn't anything shutting down?" "Phones still work. Our equipment isn't dead." Maxwell raised an eyebrow. "You still think the field replaces electricity?"
He shook his head gently. "No."
"It eliminates the need for electricity." A moment of absolute silence. Then the screens reactivated, not with software, not with logos, but with glowing geometric patterns flowing like liquid mathematics, reacting to the hum. A Pentagon energy specialist gasped. "That's not a UI. That's a live field signature." The patterns shifted, pulsating softly with the rhythm of the lattice outside. Maxwell walked toward the center of the room. "You've built systems that consume energy. Machines that depend on fuel, wires, batteries, infrastructure." He looked back at the EV, now glowing like it had been carved from light. "This is different. This is a carrier wave that exists whether machines are here or not." Elon rubbed the back of his neck, overwhelmed. "It's ambient," he whispered. "Universal. A background layer." "Exactly," Maxwell replied. A NASA physicist suddenly looked up. "So, planes? Satellites? Spacecraft?" Maxwell nodded, once more. "Horizon extends upward, past the stratosphere." A stunned murmur filled the room. He walked to the center console, now reconfigured by the field, and placed his hand over it. The image on the central screen zoomed out. From the building, to the city, to the entire U.S. West Coast. A glowing mesh covered it.
Smooth. Alive.
Pulsating. Ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell announced, you are looking at the world's first continent-scale, self-sustaining energy environment. A soft gasp spread through the hall. Elon swallowed hard. So, what now? He asked. Maxwell took a slow breath. Now, he said, we let it stabilize. Then, we expand. A quiet tension hung between them. Expand to where? Elon asked. Maxwell turned toward him, a faint smile crossing his face. To everywhere. The hall blinked with light as the field steadied into full resonance. The EV's hum faded into perfect silence. The mesh outside brightened and then stabilized. For the first time in history, the world's largest region was powered without fuel, batteries, wires, or sunlight. A new era had begun. Maxwell stepped back from the console. We just turned the page, he said softly. Everything after this is a new chapter for humanity. Elon exhaled slowly, awe swallowing his voice. Maxwell looked at the stunned engineers, officials, scientists. Welcome, he said, to a world without energy limits.